Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. I hope you guys are doing well and learning new things every day. Today's session is all about importing of external data into the SQL server. Let's talk about data first. So we have all these fields like data science, data engineering, artificial intelligence, and machine learning, which rely heavily on data, right? This data is being made available to us by the stakeholders. If we are dealing with millions of rows of data, which is like big data, the data will be present on the server. And we can access that data by making a connection with the server. But if we are dealing with external data files like CSV or Excel files, we need to import that data. Now, this import of data has to be done in the accurate manner. We need to provide the right properties of those columns present in the file. Otherwise, the SQL server will throw an error. Suppose we provide wrong length of a column. If a column has to have a length of 15 and if we provide only 5, the data will be truncated. We will get a truncation error. If we provide integer instead of character data type, it will again throw an error because SQL will look for integer values in the column and it will not find it. So the SQL server doesn't let us proceed with the incorrect import of data. We have to know our data well before proceeding with the import of it because we don't want to get into this endless loop of the file being rejected by the SQL server. Then we go back and make changes, again imported with the wrong properties, again being rejected by the SQL server. So we don't want to do this. We want to import the data in the correct manner so as to be able to proceed with the rest of the tasks like data analysis, data manipulation, creating the model. So let's learn how to import this data in the SQL server. So on the server, we have access to a lot of databases. I am taking the training database, for instance, here. Here we can create a new database, we can go to tasks, we can rename the database, we can even delete it, we can refresh it or look at its properties like when was it created and how much storage space it has. So we are interested in importing of a file. So we need to click on the tasks menu here. Under that, we will see on the bottom third option as import a flat file and the bottom second is import of data. These are the two options we are interested in. So we are going to focus on import a flat file for now because we are going to import a CSV file. So after we click on import a flat file, then it redirects us to this import wizard welcome page. Here we have 6 tabs: introduction, specify input file, preview data, modify columns, summary, and results. We are going to look at them and understand what do they do. So right now we are on the introduction tab. Here it mentions that to import the data, you have to specify the input file containing your data, right? That's obvious. And then you can even preview the automatically generated table schema and optionally modify your columns. So let's get started. Now, the second tab is the specify input file tab. We need to go to that. Here it asks us for the file location. My file is addresses.csv. So we need to make sure whenever we are doing an import of flat file, the file extension is in fact a flat file extension, a .csv or a .txt. We cannot provide an Excel file here. So just make sure of that. Okay. If you take care of this, import should be fine. And then the new table name appears to be addresses. So the file we provided to SQL, addresses.csv, will be converted into a table and it will appear in the database. New table name shows us what name it will appear as. It will appear as addresses right now. We can change it to whatever we want. If we want to make it addresses 1, 2, 3, new file, we can name it whatever we want. It just should be convenient and it should be unique. So just take care of those two things. And then it also shows you table schema. So DBO is the schema we have. All the files will appear as dbo.addresses, dbo.addresses1. So this is how it will look like. Once we are done with that, then we can go to preview of data tab. Here it shows you a preview of your data based on the first 50 rows. There's nothing much to be done here. It just shows us how the data will look like. We can go to the next tab, which is modify columns. So this is an important tab. Here is where we make all the changes. So these represent the properties of our file or our table. We need to make sure that we know our data well before importing it. We should know our data type of each column. We should know if a column is supposed to be made as a primary key. So what is happening on this tab is SQL will look at the first 200 rows of your base file. Whatever properties it finds, it will create this modify columns tab as per that. If it thinks that based on the first 200 rows of the description column, the data type should be nvarchar 100, it will give that. But beyond those 200 rows, if you think data type should be different, then go ahead and make those changes. Based on the first 200 rows, if SQL finds null values in the city column, it will have that checked. But if you think that beyond the 200 rows, even description column will have null values, go ahead and check it. Because this is based on just the 200 rows that SQL will generate this automatically generated table. If you provide the correct properties of their columns, the importing of file will be easier for you. You will not go back into the loop of the file being rejected by the SQL server. Again, you are making some changes, importing it with the wrong properties and then being rejected again. So we don't want to get into that loop. And so we will make all the necessary changes here and proceed. So let's look at the column name first. So here I can change the name of the column. My base file had the name as all small letters, but I don't want it. I don't like it. So I can change the column name. And then you have the data type. So you have a lot of menu options on data type. You have big integer, character, date, time, and then float, integer, nchar, nvarchar 50, nvarchar max, then small integer, tiny integer. Like there are tons of data types. So get to know your data types. You can decide what should be the data type of each column. And based on the first 200 rows, if SQL decides that the data type and the length should be nvarchar 100, you can change the length also. If you think that beyond those 200 rows, the length is in fact going to change, it's going to increase, change it, increase the length. From 50, you can probably change it to 100. From 100, you can change it to 2000. So you can do that. And then you can make any of the columns as your primary key, what you think is appropriate for your table. Then comes allow nulls. So if you think beyond those 200 rows, your data will in fact carry null values. So go ahead and check those boxes as well. So after we are done with making changes on this tab and we are happy, this is what our entire data looks like, we can go ahead and then it just shows us that operation is complete and insert data was successful. Now we come back on the server. And if you remember, our file was imported into the training database, but it doesn't automatically reflect there. We need to go ahead and refresh the database. That's what we're going to do. So after refreshing it, the file will appear as a table inside the database. So let's open the table option. And then we see dbo.addresses. Do you remember the table name I gave was addresses and the schema name was dbo. So it appears as dbo.addresses. This is how it appears. Schema and then the table name. So I can open up the columns and it shows me all the columns which were there in my base file. So I'm happy with that. Let's write a simple query and just see all the contents of it. So I'm going to copy the table name here and run this. So my contents look good. I'm happy with that. It is exactly how it was in my base file. So I think my import was pretty successful. So this was an import of the CSV file. Now we need to learn how to import the Excel files as well. So we need to go back to the training database and then right click on that like we did for the CSV files. Go to the tasks menu and then this time you're going to go to import data. Earlier it was import flat file. This time it is import data. So click on that. It redirects us to this SQL Server import and export wizard. So this is just the welcome page. We need to go to next. And then it asks us for the data source. So here from the drop down, we need to select Microsoft Excel. Then it asks us for the Excel file path. So we need to browse that location on a local machine. Now it asks me for the destination. So here I need to choose SQL Server Native Client 11.0. And on the database, I need to provide the name of the database that was there. So I chose training as my database in which the file has to be imported. So from the drop down, I'm going to choose training again. And go to next. Then it shows us how it appears in my source table and in my destination table. So this is where I can make the changes to my destination table name. It also shows the source table name and the destination table name. Now, the destination table right now is appearing as addresses dollar. I can change it. I can change it to addresses 1, 2, 3. I can change it to my file, new file, whatever I want to do it. So however I want, I can make the changes here. Just make sure it is unique and it is convenient for you for future purpose. So I'm just going to leave it as it is, like addresses dollar itself. Otherwise, you can make all those changes to the name. So we have all these column mappings wherein we have the source columns, destination columns, the data types, and if the values are nullable or not, what is the size. So we can make all those changes that we discussed on the modify columns tab for the CSV files and then proceed after we are happy with all the data properties. So after we are done, we can press OK. And then we have this save and run package in which run immediately is the default option. So I'm going to click next. And then my execution of the import file was successful. It has all those green ticks and I see that 20 rows were transferred from the base file. So let's go back to the SQL server and see if the table is appearing properly or not. So again, what will I do? I will refresh the database first. And after refreshing, that file would have come as a table now. So that is good. So the columns appear fine as well. Let's write the simple query for this table as well and see and view the contents. So the contents look good. So both my tables were imported correctly. So that's all about importing of the data into the SQL server. If you read a bit about the various data types that are present in SQL, you'll be easily able to import data into it. So if you take care of the data types for each column, if you take care of the column lengths and the presence of null values in the data file, I think you'll be able to easily import data into the server and you'll not be into this endless loop of the file being rejected by the server and you're going back and importing it again with the wrong properties and then file gets rejected again. So we don't want to do that. We want to once and for all import the file with the accurate properties and then get ahead with the rest of the tasks like data manipulation, data analysis, and the related stuff. So read a bit more about it, practice it. Just take up any data file, either from like the various sources available online, or if you have any data file, try importing it into the server. I wish you all the very best for this journey. So I hope you gained some knowledge about importing of the data into the SQL server. And if you did, give this video a thumbs up, subscribe to my channel, and stay tuned for more content. Happy learning!